Welcome to Practical Access. I am Lisa Dieker.
And I'm Rebecca Hines. And Lisa, today I think that we're really in a place where we need to start thinking about IEPs. I'm getting asked often about how do we make sure that we are meeting the needs of kids and these IEP goals in this new environment.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that that's just a new environment issue, Becky. I think it's always one that people struggle with in general. And I think one of the things we try to talk about is that, even great co-teaching, you want to make sure you're not just being another general ed teacher, but you're really making those IEPs a living and breathing document. And I think my first thought there is making sure that we have some kind of matrices or some kind of image in front of us as we're online, reminding ourselves that I'm working, whether I'm a PT, an OT, occupational therapist, physical therapist, or a special ed teacher, this kid needs help with blank, because I might be signing on and off with kids every 15 minutes. So I think first off, we have to make sure that document has life in our minds, and that we're sharing the life of that document, again, with parents who have signed it, but again, they're busy, and with the other service providers that might be working with them. That's kind of my first thought, is that we really have to bring that document to life.
That's a great point. I know that's something that we both try to share with teachers ongoing. It's not just a piece of paper that's filed somewhere, whether it's digital or hard copy. It should drive our actions every day. Well, this environment, I would say, while you're making that a living document, actually keeping really good anecdotal notes, because everyone is expected to do, attendance and all of these things right now. But I think that it's got to be overwhelming. I know it is for the teachers that I talk to try to keep track of so many moving parts at once. But at the end of the day, the IEP for a kid with disabilities is that document that we need to safeguard the most. So reasonably speaking, we are supposed to make every effort possible to reach out to students, but what do we do when we just cannot make that connection? So the biggest tip I would say is be sure you document every single attempt right now and every single way that you are trying to connect with students. Yeah. I know that's a real practical, I'm sure people know that intuitively, but sometimes unless we sit down and really purposefully do that, I think it's easy to forget in these crazy times.
Yeah, and we definitely said one of the things these podcasts is we're not lawyers, nor do we want to go there. But I do know there's like signatures going around with over 1,000 signatures with, please don't change the safeguards that are there. So I do believe we've got to remind ourselves, even in this online environment, students with disabilities deserve free and appropriate public education. And I think that's one of our greatest fears. And yet, as a teacher, when you think about documenting, I kind of laugh. We always say, teachers make 1,300 decisions a day. And yet what's harder in that online environment is which tool to use to make that decision with. So I make a lot of rapid fire decisions to help that kid on this goal right now or not, because they're ready for independence from that goal in the classroom. I think we should trust the online environment to allow us to do the same, but maybe we have to do more of that discussion with families. And a lot of my teachers say they're using like Class Dojo as a communication tool, Remind. And I even love, one of my teachers just said that she used Class Dojo with the translator and reminded parents through Google Translate that if you want to remind yourself of your kids' goals, you can actually have them translated in your language. She said it's not perfect, but the word independence kind of means the same across languages, and saying that might be a key word to work on. And so I think two things there: making sure that parents are helping us give feedback on those goals, because they're seeing their kids more when it's possible, if we can discuss with the parents. But I think the second thing is maybe really being very clear and specific of a single word that we're really focused on that goal. Is it more words, or is it bigger movements, or is it, instead of trying to say the goal is 3 times a week to do the following? I think that's a lot for people in this online world.
Agreed. And I've been doing a lot of I've been looking around for guidance from different sources, of course. The DOE, for one, as well as the Council for Exceptional Children, et cetera. And in one of the briefs sent out by the DOE, it was very early on in March, they did say that we have to develop a process to communicate with parents and guardians regarding their child's services. And I think that's that process, and this idea of creating this process and thinking about, we did a lot of things in March to make sure that we got up and running. But as it looks like things are going to be shut down in our schools longer, obviously, than we thought, we do need to backtrack, I think, and make sure that things are being done procedurally. So I'm not going to be surprised, Lisa, if having plans for distance learning doesn't become a part of the IEP in the future, and knowing in advance how we're going to serve the needs of these kids. So you're talking a lot about the things that are like front and center right now, and I agree wholeheartedly. Make it easy so that it's consumable and something that we can do and actionable. And the other side of that is, let's think about what this means for us long term, because what we put in place right now and what we start to kind of vet in terms of what's working and whatnot, it may end up being in the IEPs in the future.
Yeah, I think one of the things we both always say is stop writing stupid goals.
Yeah.
You can't measure them. You don't know what they are. You aren't sure you can deliver them. This is a really good time to reevaluate and say, what could I do online versus what could I do face-to-face? I think a lot of families would appreciate. I know one of our colleagues said, she had six people visit her son for IEP goals this week. That's a lot of people. And yet if those 6 people aren't communicating and the parent is trying to work at home, we have real empathy for trying to figure all that out. And that's where I think simple matrix, we share it across people. I love the app Goal Book to kind of share. And yet I think the one thing that I keep hearing, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, is, in Florida, we've exempt people from the state test. That's not true in a lot of states. And so teachers are like, not only do kids have to meet the goal, I still have to meet the standard. And I know that's something we're going to talk about in a future podcast is rigor, but how do we ensure that those kids are ready with those IEP goals as they maybe move into state testing in this very unknown world of COVID-19?
Well, I think that comes down to access to that standards-based instruction. And I think that's something that, again, as you mentioned, so many different people serving kids with disabilities, and now in this online environment, parents are getting, an email from this person, an email from that person, an email from this person, and it can feel very disjointed. So for those schools and districts that are really focusing on how do you take that IEP and not only make it a living document, but almost make it an interactive that links you right out to the teacher or the et cetera, from a single place. And in terms of the instruction, then it is, well, where are we linking them for him to get this exact content lesson? And if it's not being delivered somewhere, ideally that's a link to that child's gen ed teacher. But if we can't find out a way to link the child up to that, I would be looking at things like OutSchool. I'd be looking at all around to find standards-based lessons to make sure that we are providing access, because at the end of the day, providing access is what we're legally expected to do.
Yeah, it sounds like a great tech startup company or something that says, hi, I'm blank, and I want to remind you in the last session, your child did this, because it does seem like some of that in the future, if we could automate it, we could certainly change the world. We're not there yet, but this podcast is about dreaming about the future as well as living in the present. So any last thoughts there for me? I guess the last thought is again, kind of a core value is communicate, but we cannot expect the parent in this time of stress for everybody, especially the working parent, the parent who might not speak the language, to be the person who could put all this together. I think it's something as professionals we have to figure out a system within our system to do that, whether it means reaching out. And that's the best news I keep hearing is many of the teachers say the best thing that has happened is they do have time to communicate. So I don't know what that tool is, whether it's a Google Doc, a spreadsheet, a simple matrix, but to me, that seems to be what we really have to do if we're going to have FAPE and really bring the IEP to life.
I think so as well, Lisa. And I think it's time for us, just as an educational community, to look at our peers and see who has the skills to do these kind of things and to make some interactive documents for us, and just get on board with the idea of let's all collaborate. We have a big team of people here to serve kids. Let's figure out who can do it. Let's just start building it now so that we will have a process ready in the future.
And I always look back to our early childhood. They have family service plans. They've always served the family as a team. I think that's what the IEP needs to look like more in this online environment.
I think so as well.
Yeah, so we look forward to you posting any questions you might have and putting them on Twitter @AccessPractical. And we thank you for joining us today on Practical Access.